broadcast live from the Johannesburg Correctional Service. It's day 2 of the ex-offenders conference that started in Pretoria yesterday, and it's all about finding redress, that balance between ex-offenders and the victims of crime, sitting down in a very frank discussion and talking about reintegration and rehabilitation back into society, and how we can make institutions like these that are no longer called prisons, rehabilitation centers that actually work. Now, I'm joined by a victim of crime. She goes by the name of Portia Pitso, and her story is harrowing, but she's also been part of the 2-day conference. And after this broadcast, in actual fact, she'll go back to Pretoria to be part of the second day of the conference. Portia, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us here on Morning Live. And just to tell us, viewers, what is your story?
Good morning, everybody. I greet you all in the name of our wonderful Savior, Jesus Christ. And I thank you for this opportunity for Morning Live to be able to share my story. Well, practically my story is the reality of crime. I was once a victim of crime. 17 years ago, I was raped at the very tender age of 14 years by a family friend. And I've grown up with this bitterness and the anger within me. And then one day I realized that with my anger and unforgiveness, I'm not going anywhere until I met Fear Free Life, that is headed by President himself, Mr. Coleman Khumalo, and they gave me the opportunity and the platform to share my story. Currently, I'm going to correctional centers, sharing my testimony, motivating offenders, telling them that there's hope, I've forgiven you, and come back to society. We need you. Like, for an example, I'll share my personal experiences. I have a 5-year-old. I'm a single parent, and that boy needs a father. And if I can't forgive an offender or an ex-offender, then who will mentor my child? You know, like, we're having fatherless kids because 90% of the fathers, or the majority of the fathers or the men in society, are incarcerated at our correctional centers. So for me, forgiveness, healing and acceptance of our fellow brothers and sisters back into the community, it's a very pivotal role that as victims we need to play. Rehabilitation is a two-way journey. An offender cannot be rehabilitated without us victims playing a part or contributing towards accepting them back into society.
Portia, very quickly talk to me about that road to forgiveness, forgiving the person that affected your life and harmed you in such a way. What has that journey been like? Because as somebody who's not experienced it or experienced crime, and I thank God for that, how do you find the forgiveness to say that I'm going to forgive you and I'm going to move on with my life?
Forgiveness is a conscious decision. The forgiveness is an attribute of the strong, and believe you me, for me to be able to forgive one, I started forgiving myself. God forgave me, then that's how I'm able to forgive others as well. Because believe you me, a wise woman once said, the beauty of a true woman does not lie in her facial form, but lies in her obedience to God. So if I don't forgive, then surely I'm not a good example in God's face.
Portia, very quickly, we're running out of time, but I want to understand the conference over the last 2 days. Former victims of crime meeting, former inmates. What was this process? What has it been like over the last 2 days?
It's tremendously, it's unbelievable. Since I was one of those people who had a stigma towards ex-offenders, I thought it was a lie that they study and they have this challenge of finding employment. But me being part of the conference, it has opened my eyes in a broader, a wider awake that come up, wake up society. These are your sons and daughters. If we don't embrace them back into our societies, then who else is supposed to do that? It's our responsibility. Correctional services does not manufacture criminals, but it's us, society, families, brothers and sisters, that whatever crime that one has committed, it's not because they wanted to. Circumstances must have led him or her to commit that crime, but because they were incarcerated and rehabilitated, it's our duty as society, as families, as communities, to embrace and accept them back into our society, because they are our kids.
Portia, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us and sharing your very personal story with us. I really do appreciate it. Portia Pitso, who was a victim of crime and was sexually offended when she was 14 years old, and now as part of an organization going around from prison to prison, sharing her story and trying to get inmates to understand the impact they have on their victims and also changing the mindset of society at large. She's also part of that 2-day conference that's happening in Pretoria. Let's go back to the studio in Johannesburg, where Valen Kirtley is standing by with your sport.